Oh, because she got mad at you.
Yeah. All right. We're live. I wonder if anyone's getting notifications on their watches or their cell phones that we're live. This one will be a special one. We have one of our coaches from the gym and one of our athletes that Heather coaches, Renata, who you've been with us for a year at Great
It'll be
Wolf.
a year in April. Came right when the Open was done last year. I came over to your gym.
All right. And then she coaches classes for us. Recently got into coaching high rocks with my wife. They really enjoy it. But she posed a question to me about the Open and goal setting for the Open, which was really interesting. And we just have a lot of perspectives and we wanted to go over it. And we thought this would be a good way to share it. And then we'll put it on our water cooler for our gym so everyone can watch it. And then those of you guys who follow the pack will obviously see it and get a notification. If you're watching, there's two people. Go ahead and wave in the chat so we know who you are, or ask a question if you have it. But Renata, how about we set the tone for what you asked me? We'll
Yeah,
just talk about the
so
Open.
we had talked about kind of what my goal potentially would be for the Open this year. Just to preface, this is my third Open. And my goal originally was to be greater than 65% that I was last year in the Open. And I kind of thought that was an appropriate thing to start with, to be like, hey, I was top 65% last year. Maybe this year I can shoot for 70%. I know that in the Community Cup, that means like the intermediate group. So that was my original goal that I kind of came to you with.
Yeah, and I think most people through the years now, and with like quarterfinals, the top 10% and then the 25% that it was last year, people like really hone in on that. Like, I want to move up in my percentile, which I don't think is a bad thing, but we can talk about why it's kind of arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the place that most people start, and that's where you started. And you were like, okay, I think it's very reasonable for me to move up to 75%. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Because I think that's the question that most people need to ask themselves first, is like, that move from 60 or 65 to 70 or 75 or even 90 to 99 percentile, like, what is that? How do you make that happen? And I think, do you think that, like, when I asked that question, you had any idea what that meant?
No, I didn't. I kind of thought, that seemed linear to me. Like, you see a number, you're like, oh, well, 70% is better than 65%. But then kind of as we started to talk about it, what does that really mean? It's not like you're comparing a 5K time. Like if I ran a 5K in half an hour last year and I improved to 25 minutes this year, that's linear because it's the same movement. But then kind of, I know we'll kind of get more into it, but that's not what the Open is. It's not a linear progression year to year. And so you don't know what that linear number is for you necessarily.
Yeah. So that's where we want to start, is that it's good. It's a good place. Like, most people are going to pick, like, I want to move up in percentile, or now with the level system that has been there for a while, but nobody really paid attention to it. CrossFit didn't do a very good job about explaining it. This year, they did a better job of explaining it. Still could improve on explaining what the levels are and that breakdown. It's in the rule book now with the percentage of, levels 1 through 10. You guys can look that up if you're interested and read it in the rule book. I would tell you it. I know it like the back of my hand, but it's more fun if you read the rule book and learn for yourself, because the information is there.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to do a little work to learn it. And that's I think a big theme that people should have and hold with the sport of fitness or CrossFit in general, or the Open, is that the information actually is there, and you just need to go and find it, maybe potentially, or read correctly. And there are errors, obviously, but yeah, so you can figure that out and what level you want to be and try to get to, and why and how and what. So the first question I posed to her, and I was like, okay, so you want to go from this group of people at 60% to this group of people at 70%. So now we have to define those group of people. And I said, is it the same group of people last year? Like, how do you know that the exact same, let's just say 7,000 women are the same 7,000 women?
You don't.
Yeah. And so that already, by that logic, gives you a false positive, because you could move up 70 percentile because it was 7,000 women and now it's 3,000 women, and you have improved over the year. So your cohort of people shrinks. So it's easier for you to jump that percentage, because there's less people that you got to beat, or there's less people that are beating you. And so it conflates that percentage a little bit. So that's the first, let's say, like, fallacy of the open percentage, is that it's never the same people.
Mhm.
And that reflection of the group that you're in, this, if we're going to go with like case study group, is completely different from demographic. They're training, they're not in the same gym. Like, it's not a controlled group of people. And if you can like accept that, I think it's perfectly fine for people to say, hey, I want to go from 60 to 70. Like, if you know, like, I'm just arbitrarily choosing to go from 60 to 70 based on people who perceive themselves to be fit and training for this thing and want to improve their percentage, whether it's Sally or Susan, and they both
Mhm.
signed up, or just Sally signed up this year and Susan didn't, and you still want to beat Sally and you don't really care like who those ominous people are. You're just trying to move up people. I think that's okay. But it's not a real test of like your fitness.
Of your progress that you've made,
Right. Yeah.
over.
Over the year or 2 years or 3 years or however.
Mhm.
It's not a proof of like your concept of training.
Right.
So then the other thing was, I asked you, like, well, how many of the open workouts have you done? Because I didn't know that you did 3 years of the open.
Mhm.
And then last year, well, almost every year except for 2023, I believe. No, there was maybe 2022. One of the open years, where it was the 3 weeks, didn't have a retest workout. Can't
Mhm.
remember which one that is. But either way, last year had a retest workout. And you never did that workout because
Right.
you didn't do CrossFit in 2014.
Mhm.
So I explained that as well. I think that's another thing, like, because we get the emails from CrossFit. Everybody who signs up for the open gets these. Some of the affiliates get these, and it's like the number one reason they have in their list of 5 reasons to do the open is to see your progress. So
Mhm.
they say CrossFit methodology is built on observable, measurable, and repeatable, which I would argue this is true. I don't need to argue. It is true. They do that. But the problem is, you didn't do that workout in 2014. So it's only observable and measurable for the first time.
Mhm.
And then you'd have to do it again on your own. Or let's say they retest it again this year. I don't think
Right.
they would, but it's not repeatable in the sense for you, because when you started the open.
Mhm.
So even in their own like push, I think there's a problem there in CrossFit. Like, that's one of my gripes, is that unless you've been doing it a long time, it's not actually like repeatable
Repeatable.
and measurable in that way of tracking your progress.
Mhm.
And that, like, that's their number one like point. There's other points that I do agree with. I just think a lot of people need to get that in their minds of like, unless you've been doing this open after open after open after open after open, and you have, like myself, and you have 12 years of, 13 years of, 14 years of, 15 years of, you're not really like measuring anything against it.
Against the score, right?
Yeah.
So it's more of like, we've kind of briefly talked about it, but like kind of like focusing on those specific skills or movements that you couldn't do year 1 that you were able to do year 2 or 3. Like for me, I started, like, this will be my 3rd open. So year 1 I did it scaled. Last year was my first time doing it RX. I got my first chest to bar last year during the open. I could only do 1 single toes to bar last year, which I know, even without the open in the picture, even if I were to do toes to bar now, I know I can do more than 1 consecutively. So I know, like you and I briefly talked about it, like that's already improvement from last year's open to this year. And I think, I've realized that, in our conversations, that that's what people need to focus more on, is what skills have you, gained in the past year that you can measure and continue to measure going forward.
Yeah. And building your own measurable context for what you're doing in the open, right? So you just laid it out. Basically, a better way to approach looking at the open for most people is saying, okay, let me evaluate my last 3 opens. And we can get into the details of that in a second, but you already have some key performance indicators of metrics. Like, you're like, I did 1 chest to bar, I could do toes to bar 1 at a time. And what was it? Oh, you went from scale to RX, right? So
Mhm.
those could be key performance indicators or KPIs that you're going to write down on a piece of paper. And hopefully you've already done that.
Mhm.
So people listening to this, you would start out with like your baseline KPIs that you could remember. And then when the open comes in next week and a half, let's say the first workout has toes to bar in it. So a key performance indicator is you did one at a time last year. And so a improvement would be two at a time,
Hmm.
right? Or however many that is.
Hmm.
And so those are really tangible and easy things that you yourself could evaluate in your fitness, and using the open as like the proxy for this evaluation. But you have to go deeper into your own personal evaluation. We're doing this exercise so then people can sit down and go, oh, this is how I should evaluate myself and build out my own context as I head into the open to find success through the process and your own growth in performance and progression. So like for you, the toe to bar, what do you think right now? Like you have the one that you've done, and if toe to bar come up this year, they may not, but if they do, what's something that you would like to achieve? What would be a win for you in that singular movement?
I would say sets of 4 to 5 consistently if it's like an AMRAP, because I know in class, I think a few weeks ago it was like an AMRAP of rowing and then 4 toes to bar and something else. And I was able to hold on for the entire AMRAP with those 4 toes to bar without having to jump down. So that would be a win to do 5.
Cool. So then you're going to write that down, measure it against last year. If you can do 2, then you already won over last year in progress. And then this year, you're going to try and do the 4, and you've already identified like a win in the workout. That's external from the actual overall score.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to draw people away from like their end result. The end result is good, and like that's where you're shooting for. But if you build these process and you're like what people call
Stepping stones.
yeah, but like, man, I was just like, I'm drawing a blank right now. I use it all the time. And I tell people, oh, their execution. Like when you execute a workout, and when I tell athletes in competition all the time, like, no, just focus on the execution and how you're going to execute the things that are going to want either make you proud, show progress, or compete at a high level. You need to have that execution plan mapped out. So for you, you already made like an execution plan and an end state of a win. It's I'm going to do 4 unbroken in whatever the AMRAP is.
Mm-hmm.
Like the AMRAP might be 4 at a time, because like I told you, they have those workouts where it's they would do the 4 thrusters, 6 toes to bar, 24 double unders in 2019, I believe. And it's like, okay, cool. So you go 4-2 the whole time in that workout for 20 minutes. That's a win for you. And you executed it with your plan using your key performance indicators from like, I did 1 last year. I know in class I can hold 4. I'm going to try 4. And now you have that goal.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's something people can do. And that's what we wanted to talk about and like work through with you. So hopefully you write that down, and we like can keep that on the table as the open comes for you, and you go for it. Let's see. Brad H. He says, heck yeah, get it, girl. Not sure if you've discussed it. Do you know Brad H?
I do not.
No, neither do I. Thanks, Brad H. All right, what's another KPI that you're looking at for this year?
Doubles.
Double unders, yeah. We've
Oh,
been working
man.
on them.
Trying.
That's going to be your win?
Trying. Well, every week is not linear. It's what everyone keeps telling me at the gym. So hopefully
Yeah, your
next
feet
week
and calves might be fatigued.
hopefully it'll show up week 2.
Yeah, so the double unders, you've been working really hard on. You've been working positional work, jumping mechanics, and this bleeds into something that I know, well, I would hope, and I'm going to encourage it in our gym. And those of you guys who listen to this, I would hope that people don't be annoying about it, because obviously people want to work out, and like if you're planning on doing this, you need to be ready, especially if you're in a gym where you're either doing Friday night lights or they're doing it in class. But like you can set up a tripod with your iPhone and film yourself do the open workout. But again, be respectful to everybody else, because if you're taking a long time because you want to set up the tripod and everything else, now you're being selfish. So just be respectful of everybody else's time. Be aware, look around, read the temperature of the room and like how quickly those things need to get set up. So then, you're not infringing on other people's experience, because sometimes we can do that, especially in a group setting. We got to be careful of that. But if you videotape yourself doing your open workout, and like I videotaped you on Saturday with your double unders, and you could easily see the new piece of the puzzle that you need to work on for your double unders, where you've fixed other things like your foot position, bending through the hip when you jump, jumping a little higher, those things. And now you're going to work on a new layer that if you do it in the open and you are successful in working on that mechanical position during the workout, would you say that's a win?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. And like the only way you're going to really know that is if you video your open workout.
Right.
And then you got to watch your video and evaluate it. But I do recommend that for a lot of people, because you can then look back and go, all right, so my execution was this. This was what I wanted out of a win. I'm going to see if I did the toes to bar. That'd be great if it was toes to bar and double unders in one workout. So then you can
No.
just work on both things at the same time.
I do want to piggyback kind of what you just said though too.
Yeah.
Like I think other people might focus on this too. Like I know BJ and I kind of briefly talked about it Saturday, and you and I did. I've gotten really frustrated in the last week with double unders, but I also think it's because I feel like there's that timeline that like, oh, like the open is next week. So I think when people do set goals, like obviously my goal when I came to you guys was to just in general improve my double unders, which I know I have from May until now. But I think, it's hard to see that there's progress when you feel like you're not doing the thing. But I know like, my feet were like this before, and like I literally couldn't even jump like a normal human being. So I think putting a timeline on things isn't always the answer, or like you shouldn't pressure yourself for the timeline. Like your progress is your progress. However far you can get, it is what it is. And you keep working on that goal. Like the timeline can change. So just because there's the open next week doesn't mean that those goals necessarily need to change.
Yeah. And it's hard too, because like even today I was in the gym working out, and then Kathleen was doing something. She was learning butterfly ring dips. And I spent maybe 10 seconds with her, and she went from not being able to do butterfly ring dips to being able to do them. And, she was a D1 athlete, and like, you don't know where people's backgrounds of athleticism are. And there are some people who, and you don't have to be a D1 athlete. It just typically happens that the people who can adapt very quickly and learn new skills really fast typically end up oh yeah, I was in college, I did blah, 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 and my whole life I did blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that makes sense. Like you pick these things up. You've been bred for human movement since you were like 7 years old. So like, yeah, that makes sense. And it's hard though, because you don't, unless you go around, and as like a general member, that's not going to happen. As a coach, you start to learn. Like you're coaching for us, you start to be like, oh, well, so-and-so played soccer and they did this and that. And you start building all this context of like where each individual person is at. Whereas when you're not coaching or really ingrained in the community, in the sense of like, well, what did you do for your athletic background? What do you do now? What, like, you don't know where people's journey is. But then you have the tendency, most people do, to compare themselves in a class. Cause it's like, well, I see this person, they look, talk, and move like me. So therefore we should get the same progress. And then when they get more progress than you, it gets frustrating. So that's something to be aware of too, just generally. And even with the open, there are people who are going to come into the open and have worked all year long and worked really hard and not do as well as they've liked. And somebody else might do really well, and they may or may not have put in the same amount of work as you. They may or may not have similar athletic backgrounds as you, that you don't know what they're doing every single day. Like we talk about this in the competitive sense too. And there's, we know that there's like anabolics and steroids and performance enhancing drugs in the space. Not everyone's using them, but there are some people who do. And it's like, well, you don't know if someone is or isn't. So you can't control that, but you also shouldn't compare yourself to somebody else, because you're not doing those things. They're not doing your things. They don't have the athlete history that you have. They don't have the coach that you have. They don't have. So there's just a list of things, and the comparison of that is tough. Now, if you're competing in sport at the highest level, you do need to compare, because that's how you win and lose. But at the end of the day, when you're just doing this to improve yourself, it's a hobby. You enjoy the level of competition that you're at. It's not okay to be comparing yourself. It's kind of like delusional to a degree. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's easier said than done to not compare yourself to others, but I think, that you shouldn't in general, and you should focus on your own fitness journey and improve your individual, faults and skills, movements that need to be improved year to year.
Right. Yeah. Cody says it takes however long it takes. It takes however long it takes, and it takes what it takes. Because it might take you much more than somebody else also
Yep.
in your development and your journey. You might have to put in more hours, more time, more focus than somebody who puts in less and get the same outcome. And that's true for not just CrossFit, but like everything
What
in
was
life.
it, Cody? 600 something days, right?
Yeah. Blew out his elbow and then 600 plus days and snatches the weight again. So like, and someone might do that in 250 days,
Mm-hmm.
same injury. So like, and that means nothing. It's the individual human experience. It's it's a single player game, right? So like,
Right.
we need to remember that. And so as you're going through your process, try not to focus on those things and those people and like your own progress too, comparing who you were a year ago to who you are now, because that can spiral you out of control in a little rabbit hole. So
Mm-hmm.
videotaping yourself is going to be good because you don't have video of your open workouts from 3 years ago. But if you start this process now, and thankfully for YouTube, you can do all 3 of your workouts and videotape yourself, put it up to YouTube, and you can leave it unlisted so no one can watch it. And you can save that. And it's going to sit there unless like the whole internet crashes and YouTube and Google go under, which I don't think it will. You will have that historical information.
Mm-hmm.
And so then next year, you can then go ahead and videotape yourself again. And then that would be a good time to compare,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're really working on it, I guarantee you're going to see a change. It's like I kick myself sometimes because I wish like when people come into the gym, we took like a photo of their air squat and saved it, or like a movement that they're having a hard time with. And we took like a video or a photo of them. And then once they mastered it, we shared it with them so they could have perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see it all the time. People are just, oh, I could do like they do. I don't know. Just pick something like a pull up. They've been trying to do pull ups and they're nowhere near pull ups when they first started. And then they do one and they're like, oh, I just want to do two now. And you're like, my God, you just did one. And like,
One, right.
you're not even enjoying how much work you put in and where you came from. And you're just like on to the next thing, which most people are like that. And that's okay. But you got to take a moment to have that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So using the open can give you a lot of that. It's hard. It's going to be hard for you this year. That's why we're starting the process now. And anyone who doesn't have videos of themselves from years before, it's going to be hard. So start the process this year of collecting that visual information, that data of yourself, the video of you doing the open workouts, and you can look back on those workouts and compare next year that way and have a true comparison of like how you move, how the double unders look, how the toes to bar look. Because anyone who's listening, don't be confused. The open is not unknown and unknowable. There's 26 movements that they've cycled through. Double unders have been in every open since its inception. The second movement that they've had since its inception that is the highest ranking of how many times it showed up is thrusters. So if you work on your double unders and your thrusters, you're going to get pretty good at the open. Then it's pull-ups and then some other stuff. But like, it's pretty known what you're going to see to a degree. And if you like follow a good training program, you're going to improve. And so that way, like when we talk about measurable and repeatable, it is measurable and repeatable in that respect, that it is not as unknown and unknowable. What we don't know is the combinations, the loading, the reps, the time domains, those things, how they're going to create the workout and the feel of the workout and what gets paired together. We don't know, but we do know there's going to be double unders, thrusters, toes to bar, chest to bars, burpees, rowing, wall balls, box jumps, something with a dumbbell, maybe handstand walks, wall walks, maybe handstand push-ups, maybe wall facing, some variation of all of those things. And if you could train just those things I listed, you'd still get pretty good at the open. You'd want to train a lot of other stuff, but just that list there would be enough, right? So from that, it's like, it's not a big task to write down like, how am I doing in toes to bar? Have you done that yet? Have you like wrote down? They have it in level 2 CrossFit, like manual. They talk about it in level 1, and it's how to build program design for CrossFit. And it's got the list of movements. Have you seen that?
I've seen the list. I can't say that I've done what you just said.
Yeah. So you could take that list and you could just like, what I like is people developing to give themselves a score or just write down notes about it. Like right now, that you can do 4 toe to bar unbroken. Okay, well, how many sets can you do 4 toe to bar unbroken before you can no longer do 4 toe to bar unbroken? And you could build a whole spreadsheet of these things and start building context around, or look back in your data with your training and your coach, Heather, it's easy. It's all there if you're putting in your scores every
Right.
day and writing in your notes. And then you could fill this out just on a movement perspective of the open and general CrossFit movements. And then you can track that progress there as well. Or you can like use a notebook and make a little like graph paper and make a little thing. You could do that too and make it like real fun. You could also give it like a grade. Like, okay, I arbitrarily am going to say, like, you decide, all right, doing 4 toe to bar is a 3 out of 10 of what you perceive to be the best, right? And then you're like, okay, when I can do 10 toe to bar unbroken, that's a 6 out of 10 of the best. And then you're like, okay, when I can do 25 toe to bar unbroken on your scale, it's a 10 out of 10. Right. And like you could, but you could build that now.
Right.
And it sets, clear, specific, it's a SMART goal, and it shows you where you're going with this process of training. Right. And like, I think that's something that people do miss too. And you're going to use the open as like the top tier of what's happening. And then you're going to videotape yourself. The first thing, like we talked about, you're going to write down what's a win in that workout. How can you execute it to achieve your win that's outside of the goal and your leaderboard performance?
And I think it's important for people to do that before they do the workout, because I mean, because some people might not, and they'll be like, oh, well, if they do it on Friday and they want to redo it on Monday, well, first of all, make sure that that's appropriate for you, but also making the goals beforehand, based on, if it's dubs, toes to bar, box jump overs, that you have that written down before you do the workout so that you're not, biasing or changing up your mind based on how you performed.
Yeah, no, that's good. So like the workout comes out, you've already have some of these KPIs written down, right? So dubs and toes to bar. So even if the workouts come out and they include those things, you already know. So ahead of time, then when the workout comes out, you look at it and like you're saying, you write it down. Okay. A process or an execution of this workout would be 4 unbroken. And let's say it's an AMRAP and it's got 12 and you're going to go 4, rest 20 seconds, 4, rest 20 seconds, 4. And you're going to try and hold that for as long as you can. You might want to keep that portion ambiguous because you don't know how far you're going to get. You don't know what the other movements are and how that's going to feel until you get into the workout. But if you just anchor into that one thing of doing the 4.4.4 cluster set of toe to bar, at the end of the workout, you have nothing to really say because you did it and you won. And then that's what you're getting at. It's like, regardless of what the score is, you may not even need to redo or even think about that because you executed on the things that you said you were going to execute on. And that should be enough for most people. While that's happening, you're going to video your workouts now. So now you're layering those two together and you have the workout, you can watch the workout, you have the goals ahead of time. And then from there, you can start building, like I said, the context of the movements, as they come up, right? Because like after post-workout, you could also go, okay, so, I mean, I don't know. If people want to give themselves a grade, that's pretty good. I don't like doing that too often, but if you're like, okay, I did the 4.4.4 toe to bar the whole time. And I watched other athletes that I look up to do the 12 unbroken the whole time. So that's going to be my 10 out of 10. And I did 5 rounds and they also did 5 rounds, let's just say. And you're like, okay, well, that's 60 toes to bar. So now you have a set total volume. And you know that you can 4.4.4. So then moving forward in your training, you can use the open tests to build context around how you're going to approach every day.
To do with maybe like sets of 5 to get to that with less rest, or sets of 4 with less rest and just executing it faster.
Right. Yeah. Or it's like, you talking with Heather and saying, hey, I want to work on these toe to bar when the season's over in isolation. I want to build out 12 unbroken. And then when you can do the 12 unbroken, you might rest as needed and then do a second set of 12 unbroken. And then as that gets really easy, you report back and she goes, okay, we're going to do 3 sets unbroken, and then 4, and then 5. And then when she's at the 5 sets unbroken, you could say, hey, do you want to retest? I mean, that might take however long that takes, like Cody said. And then you might say, hey, let's retest that open workout. And this might be 8 months down the road. And you're like, okay, my execution plan is to do 12 unbroken for 5 rounds. repeat my score that I got in the open, but this time do 12 toes to bar unbroken. And that will change things. I mean, people will be like, well, yeah, but you got the same score, so you're not fitter. It's like, well, no, you're substantially fitter because you did the toes to bar in 3 sets of 4, and now you did it in the
One.
5 sets. Yeah, one each round, right? So you did
Mhm.
the 60 toes to bar in 12. Let's see what Cody's saying. You don't have to wait till the open to do this. That is true, Cody, but we're going to leverage the open and get people fired up to do the open and use the open as the test and the anchor point of your year to train all year long, and then come back and retest yourself again and do this process to evaluate your fitness. And I hope that this creates longevity for people, because you can continue to be like, oh, I can always grow in this. I can get better. And here's how I can specifically, actionably, and tangibly get better. And I know how I'm going to achieve that. It's almost like coaching yourself, but then you doing this work can help you trust the process with your coach, and you can have better communication with your coach. You can understand what you're working for when the programming comes through. You're not like, what am I doing today? It's like, no, you know exactly what you're doing. Sometimes it might not make sense, but it layers into all the stuff you're doing. So it's good. And then Cody share. I'm
To
gonna read the
Cody's
rest of the rest of it, and then you can go. He wanted to share his thing. Is I create small wins every day in training, and if Todd or Heather is around, I'll annoy them to help me decipher my wins and losses. What were you gonna say? Thanks for sharing, Cody.
I think to Cody's point too, like I think, some people at the gym, if February hits and they're like, oh, the open's coming up. What do I need to work on? So it's to Cody's point, like, yes, any time is a good time, but trying maybe not to focus on the things that you need to get better at on February 1st, but starting when the open is over in the off season and working, progressively throughout the entire year and not just the month leading up to it, which, the gym does a really good job with getting us ready for that starting in the fall with different progressions and stuff. But from an individual perspective, to focus on it all year round and not just in this month span.
Yeah, and it is something it's similar to how people sign up for marathons or half marathons or a high rocks or Spartan race or any of those things. If you're doing CrossFit, you can say, hey, I'm going to do the open because it's for all levels. And you get your score and everything else. And like, you can train specifically for that all year round. And that's something that is unique to our sport that makes it so similar to like I said, marathon running or cycling or any of that stuff, that it has something that allows you to train for it. Just like high rocks, it allows you like, I'm going to do this race, then I'm going to train up. Because the people who do like a high rocks race or even marathon, they go out and they run and they race, and then they look at their results, and then they formulate a plan to increase their result and get better. Same thing with the open. And that's even though the workouts are changing because the constantly variedness of it, which is good for people, their health and longevity and their overall total body of fitness. But you can use this opportunity to, similarly, the same way people go out and go to these marathons and high rocks, is you can use it to compete in your gym and get a little bit of a boost. Because that's something that in the email here, they're saying number 3 is push your limits, or push yourself beyond your limits. You'll be surprised with yourself and what you're capable of when you step outside your comfort zone. And I think the open does a good job of that, because you can come in and do any workout any day in your CrossFit affiliate, and it's fine. Like, there's no pressure added. I've watched some phenomenal athletes crack because now it means something. You signing up for the open, paying your $20, you've made that workout mean something because you've decided to make it mean something, and your name goes on the leaderboard. So now you have a social statement and you're out there, and anybody could look up Renata and either laugh at you or applaud you. You got frenemies, right? But that pressure can lead to some really good things. And let's say you're the type of person too that doesn't do well under pressure and you don't like it. We have a member who last year, I believe, was her first year signing up for the open. She's done CrossFit for a long time. And she was like, oh, it gives me so much anxiety. And I was like, hey, like, I don't want to be rude or a dick or anything, but like, you're not like a competitive athlete. Like, you're not super elite. Like, legit, no one cares about you on the leaderboard. I mean, I'm sure some people do, like, not no one, but just giving her that frame of reference and being like, but like, the fact that it bothers you is an opportunity for you to work on yourself.
Hmm.
and let me help you and support you in this. And like, how can we mitigate the anxiety? How can we look at things better? How can we like walk through this so then you can experience this safe, really super safe, low dose,
Competition.
almost like a exposure therapy
Hmm.
to allow yourself to be able to come and combat this stuff that you're experiencing in your life. Because that piece, I think, can bleed into other things, because you might feel anxiety about sending a text message to somebody or scheduling a meeting with your boss or, one of those things. And if you practice this with something as frivolous as the open,
Hmm.
and you let a coach or a community of people guide you through that and help you, you're going to be able to do the harder thing that is more important. If you got to get a meeting with your boss, that's really important. That can be a scary thing.
Hmm.
And like just sending that email over to schedule the meeting could be the deterrent for you not ever having the meeting. Just like signing up for the open because you're so worried about it is the deterrent. Like those things go hand in hand. It's the same behavior, and you can work through some like behavioral modification by using the open as a proxy for that, which is crazy to think about that people don't like use it that way. But it's cool. You could do it that way and put yourself up. So to Cody's point, like he does it every day because he likes that kind of data and stuff. But maybe he's missing the push there and the little level of anxiety. He's gonna sign up for the open, so shouldn't say that. Number 4 here on their list though was the 3 weeks of community camaraderie and fun. And that kind of goes into what I was saying before with signing up for High Rocks or a half marathon. Like I think a lot of people do those things for fun.
Hmm.
And there's no better way for me, like owning affiliates for since 2012. So now it's 13 years and having the open every single year. Like I think more than anything that it's for us.
Hmm.
Like it's for the coaches, it's for the members, it's for the athletes, and all the stuff that we're talking about, how you can see progression, how you can build out these things so you can learn and grow and really put tangible, actionable key performance indicators to yourself to get better. But like what for you, because I just think it's a good community event within our own community. Yes, it's happening globally and everything else, but I think there's I don't think I know because I've seen it in other gyms, I've seen our gyms, what everybody talks about. It's the magic of the open within that.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing with like the magic of the marathon. Because I've coached
Yeah.
some runners and they say the same thing. Oh, I PR'd my time. Like I bested my time from training from this marathon. And they did the marathon in training. It was nowhere near the time that they did on the course. And it's because of the people, the environment, the
Hmm.
excitement, putting your name on the list, like all of those things. And so for you, how does it impact like your growth opportunity and experience in the open?
So I think there's nothing better than Friday night lights. Like I'm looking forward to that experience again on, on the floor on those Friday nights. And whether that's someone who's, more of an elite athlete at the gym or someone who just started a month ago, like we're all there together to do that one workout and cheering each other on and seeing people to be able to do their first bar muscle up or being able to do 15 burpees instead of 14 in whatever time frame that they had been working on all year. I think just pushing one another during that AMRAP or whatever it is, the chipper workout during the open, it just motivates you to keep going. Like during class, yes, there's motivation to beat whoever beat Jason or whoever's in class, but the open is just different. It just hits different, and having that community on that Friday night when everyone's there for the same goal is just, I think, great.
Yeah. And most people everybody comes in a CrossFit gym around the world. And I've seen this because I've dropped into so many gyms and I've owned 3 on 2 different ends of the country. And everyone in CrossFit is kind of the same. It draws in a very similar personality. We're all really different, but generally, uh, it's easy to get us excited. People want to work hard. They're
Hmm.
self-starters most often, type A personalities generally. So like that amplified because we know that we have a task to accomplish,
Hmm.
meaning the open, right? So the workout comes out, everyone's like, all right, this is the assignment. Like, how do we all get A pluses?
What strategy? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to also, I know like, it's only my third open, but I remember last year, like sitting here at work, waiting for it to drop. And then I'm like, okay, like, how am I going to tackle this? Like, what is the best way to get through this? And talking now with like you or Heather, just our friends at the gym now, what is the best approach for each of us? And each of us might have a different approach, and that's okay. And that's part of our like progression year to year, what that means to each of us.
Yeah. And that's like what we've just talked about is kind of cool too. Cause if you go through this process and you share with your buddies, like, cause I know every gym and every individual person, people are like, oh, it's clicky at this gym. It's like, cause every gym has clicks, right? What you got to do is mitigate the negative clicks where people are being rude to each other, but it's okay for certain people to have their clicks in their gym because you have your friends and not everybody's going to get along. So like, cause I'm going to lean into it. So in your clique that you have, your buddies, your little safety net within inside the larger community, I think it'd be good if you go through anybody and you yourself or not as well, you go through this process, not just telling your coaches, telling the people that are going to support you. Like if you're coming in at 5 p.m. Friday Night Lights and you guys are signing up, maybe be like, hey, look, how about I'll go at 5 and you go at 5:30 and we'll judge each other. And here's my action plan. Here's my KPIs. Here's what I want to do, and vice versa. And you guys share in that process. Like now you've just amplified it from one person to two people. And like, you could do that across multiple people and like have a group and a cohort. And like, I use the word click, and I think a lot of people look at that word negatively, but I think in most cases, if someone's not being a shithead, clicks are okay. It's totally fine. Just don't be rude about it. Wednesdays we wear pink, right? No, yes. But enrolling more people, and I think that's hard because like when you do enroll people, what is most people afraid of? Like if you enroll people into this thing and you tell them what you're doing, what are you most afraid of?
Being last.
Yeah, or like failing, like not living up to what you said, like being last. Yeah, being last, or not doing the toes bar in 4, or doing the double unders how you want, and like, quote unquote public shaming, which a lot of athletes face. Like I helped an athlete today doing a qualifier, and they're like, oh, it's just like nerve-wracking because everyone's watching, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, again, I go back to always like, no one cares. No one gives a fuck, but they do, but they only do in a positive sense. Like the people watching were like, it's like trying to watch the Olympics or like somebody do a sub 4-minute mile.
Like people are looking up to that individual that's doing the qualifier.
Yeah. And they don't have to be a superstar athlete. Just today it was a very good athlete. So people watching like, well, what's possible? I want to see this. This is really cool. It's like watching racehorses run around the track. Like it's cool to watch. There's no, I mean, I'm sure someone's thinking negatively because people are generally negative. We all do it. But in general, they're just like, wow, that was really impressive. That was really cool. And they're just like excited to be able to see the expression of the human performance. But yet internally, we individuals are just like, oh my God, everyone's watching. I don't want to fail. And if we can understand like that aspect of it, then you can enroll more people. And I think that's a powerful thing. I think the ability to have somebody or multiple people in your corner of like, all right, man, Renata's going to go 4.4.4 on these total bar. Like, here we go. And when you're dying, it's like, you said you're going to do it. And that's the fun of it. And like the community aspect, I think that they're getting at that. I don't know how many people like flush that out too much. And then they have 5 on here. They have your badges, which I'm a fan of. I like the badges. It's not really a big deal. And then what was the other one they had? Oh, number 2 was see your rank. And that one's cool. We talked about that a little bit, like the ranking.
So and like that really, the levels or the levels for the community cup.
Yeah. So the levels, or just generally your ranking. Like I told you how I have the filters of like, oh, I'm like the 56th place 35-year-old or whatever. I forget what I said, but yeah, like last year, 37-year-old, the 56th 37-year-old in all of New York. Like it's just a silly little thing that you can filter on the game site and find where you are relative to those people. And they have nurses, first responders, affiliate owners. I have the affiliate owner one on there to see how fit I am amongst the rest of the affiliate owners in the world. And that is only because like we talked, it's like, it's just fun to see where you are in the bigger picture of people who spend time exercising, pushing themselves, trying to become fitter, healthier, faster, stronger. And that is a good thing. And you won't get that unless you sign up for the open. Because I mean, you could run the numbers, but that's so hard.
Yeah.
Like it's so challenging to be like, all right, I got this score. Let me find myself on the thing and like filter the thing. And then where you could just pay the $20 and the machine does it for you. And some of your $20 is going to the person, and it's not just one person, it's multiple people that write that leaderboard, the coding on the back end, and manage all that, and the storage and the data. Like, I mean, how much is like iCloud storage monthly? Like $5?
Depends on how much you want, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, you pay for that storage, and
Yeah.
essentially they're storing your data. So some of that $20 has to be going to storing the data. It's not free to store
Mhm.
all this information they have. So that's just to kind of debunk the thing, like where it's like it's $20. I'm like, oh my god. Anyways, you're paying the $20, so it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, is that beyond that? And I'm really sure this was helpful for a lot of people. And beyond like building your own way to look at how you've progressed and how you're going to grow from here, is there anything that you'd want to add or that you've taken away?
I don't think so. You know, the open, kind of just summarizing, like the open is just a snapshot of like where you are in your fitness throughout your entire journey. And kind of like we kept saying throughout the podcast, like it's just one data point, but that one data point can shape you for the next year and set you up for your next goal. The only other thing I think I would add is when people are making their goals, and you know, for me, it was that 4 to 5 toes to bar. Don't lowball yourself. Like, push yourself so that you're still challenged, but being able to complete the reps that you want to complete. Because, you know, for me in double unders, that'll be more unpredictable for me, I think. So I think, you know, I'll talk with Heather when it comes to that. But for like toes to bar, like I can do more than 4, but does that mean I push myself for 5 and then fall off sooner? So those are things that people need to think about, but make sure you're still challenging yourself and not lowballing.
Yeah, that's good. I think if you have the video,
Mm-hmm.
also, retroactively, you could look at it and
Right,
people will
right.
go, "Oh yeah, that was probably off," or like, "Oh man, that was way too hard for me to
Yeah,
achieve. I
yeah.
should have never did that." Um, yeah, good. What are some other goals though that you might have had that crossed your mind?
So I think pull-ups are also doing more, you know, pull-ups more than one at a time. I think like the biggest thing for me would be the toes to bar, dubs, pull-ups. Can dream about handstand push-up. It's not gonna happen this year, but next year's goal would be to
I mean,
do
you're
one.
getting close.
Getting there. Got a 25-pound plate. So
Yeah, you're only
maybe the
about,
old
it's about
will let me do just one. We'll
the,
see.
the 25-pound plates we have are an inch and 2/3 or something because of the weird
Yeah,
attempts. But
yeah.
yeah, so you're close.
We'll see.
What is I've actually never really asked anyone this. Why, for the last 3 years and this year, like why have you done the open?
I think, well, I was only in CrossFit for like 4 months when I did my first one, and it's kind of what everyone was doing at the gym, and it was felt right. I think, you know, after the first open, I wanted, you know, to set goals and improve on things. And I know we kind of talked about it, like it's not linear, but you're able to improve year to year, like going from scale to RX. I just being part of the community, being part of, you know, the the bigger picture and helping others, you know, helping those at your gym, helping other people that are wanting to become more fit. I think it's important to be part of this community.
All right, and then he won't care. I've only had a couple of classes with him and only talked to him a few times. But why do you want Dan to do the open? So
Oh my gosh. I just want him to be part of the fun. He's like, well, I'm not good enough. He goes, I'm like, well, you told me tips on dubs the other day, so why don't you
he got two. He got two.
he got to more than I did the other day. So I think it would be fun for him to, you know, set that baseline, and then, you know, same thing, even if he doesn't video it, like he would still have his metrics of like, I would be probably watching him doing it so I could keep track of metrics, like whether, you know, whatever the workout ends up being, but having that so you can look back next year and how did I improve? Because he just started like 2 weeks ago. So it would be a huge improvement to see what his progress would be in that year time frame.
Yeah, and the CrossFit does a really good job with the scorecards. A lot of competitions have gotten better with their scorecards, but I would say I've never had an issue with the CrossFit scorecards. Other comps I've been like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But they do a really good job. So like you can use that scorecard to write down like his splits, how he broke things
Sure.
up. And like
Mm-hmm.
you could take, there's enough space
To do that.
99% of the time to do
Mm-hmm.
that. So I would, if you're going to be the one like watching him and helping him, I would do that and then take a picture of it, or you can keep the scorecard. Some people do that. They like to be old school about it. And just put it into his wad up and save it, because
Mm-hmm.
then you can go back and look at it. And that's like the biggest theme is like not using your rank in the open or how many reps you did. Like that's good and that's fun. And if your goal, like someone like, I mean, Cody's been in the chat a bunch. If your goal is like somebody like Cody who wants to get into the 99 percentile in that top 1%, like his goals are solely focused on performance metrics and beating other men in his
Mm-hmm.
group and getting the scores that they're getting. So he's building his context around how do I get faster and achieve that score? How do I do that? And that's one way to do it. And that's actually, once you get up to that point where you're trying to get that fit, that's actually easier. Like what you're doing and what general people are doing, or what Dan's about to embark on, because I hope he signs up, is much harder. Sorry, Cody, than what Cody's trying to do. It's much harder to see progress and growth. It's much harder to track it than it
Mm-hmm.
is, because Cody could hop on and be like, oh, 99 percentile was 237 reps. All right, here we go. And he could try to get 237
38.
reps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
whatever. So like, it's not, it's not as easy as what Cody's doing.
There's
It's
always a
harder.
different component too, whether it's the pace or the load or the rest, all of those items are
Right. And
taken
then
into account
and the training that has to happen to
to
improve
get
those characteristics, right? Because like if Dan gets to a bar, and this happens to a lot of people, or the gymnastic stuff, right? You get to it and it's like, you can't do one, or, oh, I can't lift that 135-pound thruster, right? I can't do this. Then what I don't think a lot of people look at it and go, well, how do I build a training program, or how do I ask my coach to build a training program that is going to progressively allow me to do that work?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just going back into the CrossFit gym and doing more CrossFit, which will work to a degree. But if you have a significant characteristic deficiency, just going back in and hitting another WOD is not going to do it. It really won't.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why you see so much of the one-on-one training and one-on-one program design, and why you see even the top athletes who are on like these blog programs, they're like spin their wheels a little bit, and then you see them all get one-on-one coaches,
Mm-hmm.
or some type of coach like modifying and manipulating whatever that program is. They get like Proven as a good example, has a ton of coaches, and they're taking the one program that they're writing, and then the coaches manipulate, modify, and hybrid that program for all of their athletes across the board when you're
Mm-hmm.
working with one of their one-on-one coaches, which allows them to drive more out of that singular program. And ultimately, at the end of the day, like if I were to look at that program, like, yeah, this is an individualized program based off some ideas that everyone's kind of following. And that's why those people get much fitter than just like someone who's going into an open gym setting and running Proven by themselves, who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really know anything. Yeah, so it's interesting, but that whole thing to increase that is so much harder than, someone like Cody, for example,
Right.
who can do all the weights, can do all the movements. It's like you said, it's how can he hold the pace? How can he sustain
Mm-hmm.
the pace? And most of the stuff that he would need to improve on is just like his general fitness and enduring that pace, and then building intervals around it, which his coach does, and everything else, so he can hold those paces.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to like an endurance runner who's running a 2:30 marathon and now they want to try to do a 2:20 marathon. Like that's the change that they're trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Dan, it'd be like drinking from a fire hose. You like do the opening, like, I'm not good at anything. Where do I start? So it's almost an impossible task. So if you're going to help him. So this is good. And I'm glad I brought this up, because like you guys can write down stuff and you can just
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, yeah, like this, you don't have this skill. So like put that in the got none column. Like you can't lift this bar, but you're able to do this bar. And like, yeah, that just again, like we said, it builds the roadmap
Mm-hmm.
to improve him and things for him to specifically focus on too. Because the other thing of like our general gym is people come in for health and fitness, and we know that works. I also know that people who believe in a program get more benefit than people who don't believe in a program. Well, how do you build belief in a program? You got to cultivate buy-in.
Have more people do the thing.
Yeah, and they got to be bought into what they're doing. And then there needs to be some efficacy meaning results, and self-efficacy. They're feeling proud about those results and they know that they can create the results. And that program works better than just a program, like a CrossFit gym program or just some affiliate where you're coming in and it's like, oh, it's my hour of the day. But now if you're building these, roadmaps of like, hey, I'm not very good at this. And you see on Tuesday is toast bar. You're like, well, I'm not missing Tuesday, and you come in consistently on those toes to bar days, or you're like, oh, weightlifting. Yeah. I'm not missing that barbell complex every week. I'm going to make sure I'm hitting that because I want to get stronger. And you start narrowly focusing in on these characteristics, which then creates consistency, more buy-in. Right. And that's something that's important generally for a program to work better than just a program working well. And that's another carryover of like what the open could do for people. Like you sign up for the open, you evaluate yourself, and then it can build buy-in to going into the
Motivating to
gym.
improve. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And with specificity of like, I need to go in the gym because I got to improve on these things. And it's on Tuesday and I'm not going to miss Tuesday. And then, and you go from there. So it is one of those things that is dual purpose in that way. It can, and like CrossFit does talk about that. They do try to encourage affiliate owners to help people see where that'll create consistency. Yeah. But that's like true for anything, I think, even like runners. Oh, we got to do this marathon. I better get out there and run. Cool. Do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. Thank you for having me.
Anybody in the comments have anything? Any questions? Go wait for some questions. Let's see. What did Brad say? Yep. Normally late night texting with friends, maybe drinking. That's a horrible idea. Okay. When are we doing this? I'm going to sign up. He's talking about like his thought process of getting signed up for the open. Yeah. Friday night. Might as well just get signed up instead of texting your friends at late night and drinking. It's a good reason. Anybody else? Cody, great additions. Great additions. Oh, do you know this person?
Yeah, he's my cousin.
Oh, nice. Shout out. Hey, and bully. Don't bully. I shouldn't say bully. Encourage
I'm
Dan.
not gonna bully. He'll
Dan to do it.
I'll make sure he listens to this and he got called out. So
he can get called out. I just want to know why you wanted him to do it. And I could see why, because you know that it's going to give him, just like yourself, it's giving you valuable things that allow you to have attention and focus in this activity that you're doing on your off time, which makes it more rewarding.
He sees it too. Like he sees the progress that I've made in the last year. So he's like, well, I want to get better at this, like slowly saying those things. So
yeah. Cool. All right. I guess no questions. Hopefully this was good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, if you guys need help building out context like for your open, myself, Heather, Renata, Marissa, everybody inside the gym can help you out. Those of you guys who are one-on-one coaches with the pack, we're here to help you and we do so. So that'll be all set. That one's easy. We got you guys. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. It helps the channel. If you ring the little bell, you get a notification when we go live so you won't miss one. And if anyone wants to sponsor us, that'd be great.